a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but I think we have it all set. I just want to thank anyone who is watching tonight. We have our very first Truth Talk Tuesday, where we talk positivity through purpose. And I would also like to go over some of the events that are going to be happening on the page over the next few days and weeks. On Sunday, we will be having our Books Galore and Creator Core event. We're having two amazing authors come to be interviewed on the page. And then after that, we will have another Books Galore event, but our special event is happening July 20th, where we are going to be having our next content creator showcase. So that's exciting. Tonight, what I would like to do is talk about a special subject that's close to my heart. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. And tonight's topic is purpose through positivity, using psychology and your purpose to spread light and truth by K.W. McCabe. That's me. I have a master's in counseling psychology and a master's in forensic psychology. I received both degrees at Holy Names University, and I have been on somewhat, I wouldn't call it a sabbatical because I have not taught in the past, but I have been on hiatus and am currently starting to move back into my purpose. So again, the title is Purpose Through Positivity, Using Psychology and Your Purpose to Spread Light and Truth. What we want to talk about is basically how positivity affects you internally with your internal dialogue and how it affects you externally with your actions and your behavior. The dynamic influence and effect of positivity. Who does positivity affect? What exactly is positivity? What is its effect neurochemically? Neurochemically means basically the chemical interactions that happen within your synapses in your brain. How does it affect how you think? And how does it affect how your brain interacts with your body and how you feel? What happens when positivity is absent? Where and when positivity begins to affect and influence you neurologically? Why positivity is neurochemically mandatory for brain development and personal growth? And how artists, creators, and writers can be mindful of utilizing positivity to influence their personal purpose and overflow that light into others. So that's some of the subjects that we are going to be covering. I will probably not cover it all tonight because it is quite extensive. I don't want to go longer than 15 or 20 minutes. And so when we reach that time, we'll probably segue into a conclusion and then pick it up next week, Tuesday. Now, the power and potency of positivity. Who does positivity affect? Well, that's pretty easy to guess, but we'll pretty much list them according to who is affected neurochemically the most. I'm sure you already know infants, children, and teens are affected by positivity the most. Adults are next, you, and everyone else you know. Now, when we talk about positivity, some people tend to think in terms of aura or, just feel good feelings. They think of it sort of as a woo-woo topic, right? And so we want to ask ourselves, is positivity just fluff or is it essential for executive function? And executive function is basically your ability to think logically, to plan, and to act in logical ways. Now, what exactly is positivity? Well, positivity is the intentional and or received experience of hope, encouragement, connection, or meaningful validation. In other words, thoughts, actions, environments, or experiences that are elevating, enlightening, and encouraging. And I'm sure you know these are just basic definitions of positivity, but positivity really isn't just about feeling good. It's certainly not about feeling happy because you can remain positive in some of the worst circumstances, in some of the most painful circumstances of your life. You can remain positive, right? So positivity is not about feeling good. It is about speech, action, or thought that intentionally holds on to encouragement and or enlightenment towards self and others despite outside conditions that are contrary. So what does that look like? What that looks like, I'll give personal examples, is For example, when I've gone through personal things in my life, personal difficulties with friends, family, situations, and I tell myself, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to, look for positive ways to fix the mistake that I made, or to look for ways to achieve this goal, even though I'm going through a hard time right now. That's maintaining positive thinking, right? We all know this. So, what is its effect neurochemically? And remember, neurochemically means how does it affect your brain? How does it affect the chemicals that interact with your neurosynapses in your brain? And how does that affect you physically, emotionally, and psychologically? So, here's the deal. Your brain is the car for your executive function. And remember, we said executive function is what helps you make logical decisions, right? Positivity is the gas. Positivity activates the neurochemical aspect of your brain's reward system: dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These are chemicals that basically act in your brain to either elevate your mood or relax stress and anxiety. These chemicals are necessary in order to maintain elevated mood and the ability to have a stable emotional state of being. These chemicals are absolutely necessary for focus, memory, creativity, and emotional regulation. Consistent positive input, both internal, meaning how you talk to yourself, and external, meaning how other people interact with you, feedback from others or the environment, builds prefrontal cortex strength, the foundation of your executive function, which controls decision making, problem solving, impulse control, and goal planning. Now, what is your prefrontal cortex? Well, let's take a look. That is the front part of your brain. It's responsible, as we said, for decision making. Basically, this part of your brain is affected by positivity. It's also affected by negativity, and it affects your ability to have logical decision making. It affects your impulse control, and it affects how you interact with others. So, what happens when positivity is absent? When you remove positivity, what follows? Your brain begins to run on fumes. Basically, when you remove positivity, what is taken away from the equation? Well, your serotonin levels start to fall. Your oxytocin levels start to fall. Your dopamine levels start to fall. And remember, your brain needs those chemicals in order to maintain a level state to have stable executive function. Serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin can flatline, leading to many different and adverse outcomes, such as depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive behaviors, poor impulse control, irritability, a decline in your desire to do activities you normally enjoy, deepening spells of sadness, anger, or rage, and a decline in your ability to regulate emotions or maintain healthy relationships with others. So we see that positivity has a very serious effect on your ability to remain emotionally stable. So when does positivity begin its influence? Where and when does positivity begin its neurological influence? Well, scientific studies indicate that its influence begins before birth and continues on into the developmental stages of childhood and adolescence. And the sources are below. And also, there is a workbook which I can give out freely at the end of the presentation. And we might be able to get through all of these tonight, which would be great. The dynamic influence and effect of positivity. Why is positivity mandatory for brain development and growth? Well, we'll tell you why. Scientific studies have proven that positive speech, actions, behaviors, and emotions have the ability to affect a child from the earliest stages of development. And we all kind of know this, right? Like this is kind of, general knowledge. The way that you talk to a child is going to affect them for the rest of their life. If you constantly say negative things to them, if you constantly tell them that they're worthless, that they're ugly, that they're stupid, that they're not smart, they're going to believe it. And it's going to affect how they think about themselves, the things that they say to themselves, and eventually the things that they say to others for the rest of their life. Positive speech carves itself into the neurochemical functions and neurotransmitters of the brain for the rest of your life, as we said. For this reason, positive speech, whether you're a writer, a creator, artist, parent, or guardian, is mandatory. Why? Because negative speech will carve itself into the brain permanently and leave its effects in ways that can be, at times, incurable. And, people might say, what? Incurable? Yes. Yes. Negative speech can cause scars in the brain that never leave. And this is why our words are very important. Positivity flowing through personal purpose. How can we utilize purpose and positivity to overflow light into others? First, determine your personal purpose. What do you love? What makes you feel intensely? What gives you joy? What makes you determined? These things will tell you what your purpose is. Maybe you find joy in writing poetry. Maybe you find joy in creating art, painting, woodwork. Whatever you find joy in, that is part of your purpose. It provides joy, it provides peace, and it creates a well of positivity that you are able to utilize over and over again to sustain yourself. Whether it is writing, creating art, music, dance, or imparting wisdom, ask yourself whether you want to carve your legacy into others in a way that makes them remember you with connection or abandonment, joy or apathy. What we always want to remember is that how we are in the world around others is how they will reflect us back to us. Positivity flowing through personal purpose. How can we utilize purpose and positivity to overflow light into others? Second, harness the power of intentional positivity. Positivity is not something that happens in a vacuum. It happens because you make the choice, no matter the circumstance, to radiate positivity. Positivity is an action, it's a choice, it is something that you do. It's not just something that you feel. The feeling is actually the effect of the decision. The decision comes and then the feeling. And sometimes the feeling comes long after the decision. Yes, depression and anxiety exist and they are real. And this is just a note for those who have experienced long term chronic depression and anxiety. There are uh, uh, ways and assistance that you must get if you are unable to exit that state by yourself. For those with chronic anxiety and depression that must be medically assisted, additional compassionate resources are an absolute must to regain quality of life. Again, if you have experienced anxiety and depression for many, many years, because of the way it has carved itself into your the chemical state of your brain, you will need assistance to get out of that. It's very difficult to get out of that by yourself. So, how do we move into intentional positivity? Scientific studies show that changing speech and behavior can positively affect mood and cognition. Light the fire within, positivity to purpose to power. Your intentional positivity will increase necessary neural pathways to reward in the brain that can increase levels of neurochemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. So, yes, there are scars that are permanent. However, there are ways to mitigate the damage. Good news, right? So, if you tell yourself, I'm going to change the way that I speak from now on, it will be extremely difficult, but if you make the decision, you can do it. This increase can lead to a heightened ability in your executive function and a corresponding increase in your creative abilities. Remember, executive function actually directly affects your ability to create. Um, it affects your ability to positively affect your environment as well as your relationships with others. Your enlightened purpose will overflow from your work and assist in creating an atmosphere of connection in your relationship with others. Consistent, intentional positivity and purpose rebound and feed on one another to create increasing power emotionally, psychologically, and creatively. So, the wonderful thing about making the decision to behave in intentional positive ways is that, yes, it can be difficult, especially if you have a habit of, you know, saying things that, you know, to yourself or to others that are not positive, right? But you can do it. And over time, that creates a feedback loop where you are feeding yourself joy, where you're feeding others joy, and that spread of joy around you and others feeds back. It's rebounding, it's multiplying, it's increasing. So at the end, we also have a workbook. I'm going to add it to the stage. And this is a free workbook that I created. It has questions in it. It's called Positivity, Purpose, and Power Workbook. At the bottom, this is one I created myself, wrote it all myself with my two hands. And if you want to request a topic, or if you would like to simply contact and see if you can join the panel at some point, the email is there, the Facebook page is there. And we're going to go through this. We're not going to read all of the questions. I simply want to show what the workbook looks like. So at the top, there's the name and a date. And the first question is, what excites you most about exploring the power of positivity with purpose? Second question, who in your life could benefit most from more positivity? Third question, how do you personally define positivity beyond just feeling good? So these are examples of some of the questions that are in the workbook. It helps you sort of work on the process of, you know, combating negative internal dialogue and increasing your ability to engage in positive internal dialogue instead. So there's 4, 5, 6, and if you come here all the way to 11 questions, and there's spaces for writing. At the end, you will find the references for that I utilized within the Tiny Talk. So what I really liked and enjoyed just thinking about this entire topic was, how can I personally engage in more positive ways? How can I personally engage in more positive talks? These are questions that I have to ask myself as well, right? Because we all have those moments where, you know, negativity can come in and sort of take over and sort of, you know, blow everything up. And so you have to stop and ask yourself, how can I turn this into a positive situation? What can I learn from this situation? How can I um, decide to intentionally engage in positive behaviors, right? Even if I might be feeling extremely anxious, even if I might be feeling extremely depressed. Because yes, you know, many people out there, especially right now with the current state of events, are experiencing anxiety and depression. It's normal and it makes sense to. It almost doesn't make sense to not have those feelings with the world the way it is, right? The economy's shot, there's war just might be imminent. You know, we're thinking about all of these things that are around us that we don't necessarily have control over. And these things can cause anxiety, they can cause sadness, they can cause depression. So how do we combat those thoughts, especially as writers, artists, musicians, creators? How can we combat that negativity so that it does not affect our work? Well, we can say, I'm going to take 5 minutes today to just meditate and focus on the positive. Or I'm going to take 5 minutes today to just pray and focus on the positive. Or I'm going to take 5 minutes today and just do positive affirmations and tell myself positive affirmations, right? You focus your mind on the positive intentionally. Now, you might have negative thoughts that pop up. That's normal. We all do, right? They're called intrusive thoughts. If you're human, you have them. So how do you combat those intrusive negative thoughts? Well, when an intrusive negative thought comes into your head, one thought might be, oh man, the world's going to end. I had that thought the other day. I was joking, but it's still a negative thought, right? It can actually, even a joking negative thought can actually affect your neurochemistry in your brain, right? So what do you tell yourself? Okay, the world might not end. The world possibly won't end right now. So what can I do to remain positive? I'm going to think positive thoughts. The sun is up. The sun is shining. I have friends that I care about. My family that loves me. I'm going to go and spend time because, I want to show the people that I care about that I love them. And, if the world is ending, wouldn't you want to spend more time enjoying that time with your friends? One positive thing about all of this is that we can look around and say, you know what? The phone is not that important, right? The internet is not that important. I say as I am on the internet. Yes, hypocritical. I know. The social media is not that important. What is important? What's important is at this time, I need to find someone I love and care about. And even if it's just one sentence, I love you, or I miss you, or hey, what's up? What are you doing? That's a way of engaging in positive behaviors. It's a way of engaging in positive relationships, right? So these are some of the things that we can do. You can tell yourself when you're having a negative thought, oh, this is so stupid. Stop. Just tell yourself, sometimes I have to do that when I'm having negative thoughts. Stop. Okay? Stop. You can tell yourself that. Stop. Like, stop it. And then forcefully tell yourself something positive. Today might feel strange, but I'm going to make the most of my day. You tell yourself an affirmation. Today might feel horrible, but I'm going to take a walk and meditate, and I'm going to make the best of my day. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to make my day feel more productive. I'm going to sit and just enjoy the space around me. Find a quiet place that you enjoy and enjoy the place around me so that I can bring peace to myself. Or you might say, I might write 1,000 words and just engage in that type of intentional positive behavior in order to regulate your own emotions. Or if you're a painter, I'm going to take 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours, however long you take to engage in this type of art in order to regulate my emotions and engage in this positive behavior. That is engaging in intentional positivity, especially if you struggle with chronic anxiety or depression. Engaging in intentional positive behaviors that actually help you self regulate is mandatory. It's extremely important, especially if you are neurodivergent. You might have a lot of anxiety. For example, I have anxiety all the time that, oh no, 5 seconds I'm supposed to be doing this and now I'm doing that. Okay, breathe. Let me go back to task one. Breathe. Let me go back and finish this, right? It's going to be okay. I know this is, my deal. It's going to be okay. The world's not going to end if I just got distracted a little bit. Let me just go back to the task. Sometimes you have to be, gentle with yourself. You need to be more compassionate to yourself because we all hold ourselves to these standards. And sometimes what we need to do is just be more compassionate with ourselves. So that's the tiny talk for today. We will probably come back next week with a different topic. And we will also be coming after we have spoken on Sunday again, the 29th, with author Johanna and author Jennifer. So that's going to be super exciting. So I hope that you enjoyed this tiny talk and thank you for watching.